10. Samantha Mina. Samantha Mina was run down by a vehicle while chasing 3 men who had just allegedly robbed her boyfriend. It happened in California, and the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Office is still searching for the guilty party responsible for her tragic death. According to the Los Angeles Times, the incident occurred at the end of March 2021. Samantha's boyfriend had been minding his own business at their residential complex when 3 men accosted him. One of the men pulled out a handgun and pistol-whipped Samantha's boyfriend so hard that he was knocked unconscious. Afterward, Samantha chased after the hooligans to defend her boyfriend and get some justice. She wasn't afraid to confront them, and so she followed the trio outside of the residential complex and into the street. Before she could get a license plate number or take any kind of action, they got into their vehicle and ran her over. When deputies responded to the scene, they discovered Samantha badly injured in the street. She was taken swiftly to the hospital, but sadly was pronounced dead later that day. 1 week following the terrible death of Samantha Mina, one suspect was taken into custody. His name is Juan Huelcharoyo, and he has since been charged with murder. But seeing as there's been no news of this case since it first exploded over a year ago, it's looking like the other 2 suspects got away free. 9. Beaver Island plane crash. On November 13, 2021, a plane crashed on Beaver Island, Michigan. 3 passengers and the pilot were killed, including a man named Mike Perdue, died saving his 11-year-old daughter by protecting her small and fragile body on his own. Mike's friend Ryan Wojon told CNN News that as the plane was plummeting toward the ground, Mike grabbed his daughter with no regard for his own safety and cradled her safely in his arms. The young girl, identified as Lainey Perdue, doesn't remember anything from the incident except her dad giving her a fierce bear hug. And now, for the rest of her life, Lainey's final memory of her father will be of him protecting her as their plane crashed. Even with her father acting as a human barricade, Lainey still suffered broken bones and minor injuries. She was treated at the Children's Hospital in Grand Rapids. The crash which caused all this mayhem is being investigated by the FAA, and we still don't know what really happened. 8. Mushroom killing. In Miami Beach, Florida, a tourist was shot while eating dinner with his family. It happened in August of 2021 at the La Cerveceria restaurant. Dustin Wakefield, a 21-year-old man from Castle Rock, Colorado, was visiting Florida with his family. Dustin's son was only a year old, still nothing but an infant. And as they were seated around the table minding their own business, trying to enjoy some Florida warmth, Tamarius Blair David Jr. walked in off the street for no other reason than to commit a random murder. Tamarius pointed a gun at Dustin's baby, and so, doing the only thing a father could do, Dustin stood up and got between the gun and his kid. When Tamarius started pulling the trigger, Dustin took every last bullet straight to his body, thereby sparing his child. Dustin died, but he protected his son at all costs. Once Dustin was lying dead on the floor of the restaurant, Tamarius started dancing over his corpse. According to people in the restaurant, he was smiling and laughing as everyone else screamed, and Dustin bled out. He then ran away, lied down in the street, and smiled up at the sky until the police showed up to arrest him. When questioned, Tamarius said he did it because he had eaten too many magic mushrooms and had gone totally out of his mind. 7. Stopping a sword fight. In 2009, a grandmother in Indianapolis tried to break up a fight between her grandson and her brother-in-law. The 2 men weren't fighting with their fists, but with swords. The grandmother was terrified that one of her loved ones was going to be speared by a blade, and so she tried to stop the fight. That was when 77-year-old Franziska Stegbauer was slashed and killed. Police Sergeant Matthew Mount says it's unclear who started the fight, although both the grandson and the brother-in-law both wound up at the hospital with serious stab wounds. Sergeant Mount also says nobody knows how the swords even got involved, only that one was identified as a Japanese officer's sword from World War II, and the other was of unknown origins. The grandson, Chris Rondo, was arrested on preliminary charges of attempted murder. And while that was happening, the victim's brother was fighting for his life in the hospital because he had suffered several almost fatal stab wounds. 6. The deadly polar bear. In 2018, Aaron Gibbons was at one of his favorite fishing places on Century Island in Hudson Bay. That's only about 6 miles or 10 kilometers from the small town of Arviat, on the shore of the bay in Canada. It was the beginning of July, the weather was cool and crisp, and Aaron was enjoying some family time with his children. But all of that went horribly wrong when Aaron looked up and realized there was a polar bear on the island with them. The bear was huge, way larger than a man, and without any fear whatsoever. Aaron had simply been trying to hang out with his kids, and so he hadn't thought to bring any kind of protection with him. But when he found himself facing that bear, with the possibility that the beast could kill his kids, the father jumped into action. Even without a rifle, he got between his kids and the bear and screamed at them to run for the boat and go get help. Then he turned around and took care of that bear himself. To stop the bear from chasing his children, he stood right in front of it like a human wall and was torn to shreds. By the time help arrived and the bear was put down by other members of the community, the brave father was already dead. 5. Brave Michigan mom. A very brave mother in Michigan recently died saving her 2 5-year-old twins from a deadly car crash. Her name was Hillary Galaska, 29 years old, and she was driving home with her 2 kids in her car, just like she did on any other day. But this day would end in tragedy when something went very wrong on the entrance ramp of the I-96 near Davison, Michigan. Hillary found herself being rear-ended inside her Saturn Ion. And while a light rear-ending may not have been so bad, she was absolutely smoked from behind at a ridiculous speed. Somebody smashed at full speed into the back of her car, and Hillary had less than a split second to think. But really, Hillary never needed to think. She felt the impact from the other vehicle and instantaneously threw herself sideways so that when her children were flung forward from the force, she shielded them from hitting anything else. Her quick thinking saved her 2 little boys, but she herself didn't make it. According to what her mother told the local news, her twins saw their mother open her eyes. She looked at them, and then she closed her eyes and never opened them again. Her young sons are going to remember that for the rest of their lives. As for the man responsible for this woman's death, Michigan State Police say he was a 25-year-old man with 2 prior convictions for driving without a proper license. He also had 5 current suspensions and warrants already out for his arrest. He was later found after fleeing the scene and has since been arrested. 4. Jessica Arrendale. Early on one Sunday morning in September of 2014, Georgia resident Jessica Arrendale was brutally murdered by the father of her young daughter, Kobe. After the killing, Jessica was hailed a hero by her family since, thanks to her, the 6-month-old survived. The tragedy was that in order for her daughter to live, Jessica herself had to take a bullet to the head. Jessica's mom, Teresa Iniello, spoke with local news outlets to give the heartbreaking details of her daughter's story and the miraculous survival of Kobe. It all started on the night prior, when Jessica and her baby's father, Antoine Davis, went for a night out on the town. Antoine became belligerent and drunk, and this led to some abusive behavior. Apparently, it wasn't the first time it had happened either. Around midnight, they returned home, and Jessica was chased by Antoine up the stairs as he tried to attack her. She managed to get into the house and grab a baseball bat, but was quickly overpowered and then beaten with the bat. She shielded her child with her own body. trying to protect Kobe from the blows. The end came quickly and mercilessly. Jessica locked herself in the bathroom, but Antoine easily smashed the door down, equipped with an assault rifle and a suppressor. He shot the young mother in the head. Then, in the final split second of her waking existence, Jessica twisted her body in such a way that her daughter fell into the toilet bowl and her body fell over top of it. Antoine had wanted to kill them both, but couldn't be bothered to lift Jessica's body to find the baby. So he fled the bathroom and the baby lived, all because of the quick actions of her mom even in the grips of death. 3. Carjacking gone wrong. In May of 2021, Ashley Yuki Tiansen, known to his friends as AT, was picking up his girlfriend after work. His girlfriend climbed into the vehicle and they drove to the San Mateo Adult School parking lot in California. It was about 9 o'clock in the evening and the pair were just hanging out and talking. But then 3 figures approached the car and that was when their lives changed forever. Ashley was in the driver's seat when one of the individuals opened the door and tried to steal his vehicle. They got into a confrontation. Ashley wasn't willing to just hand over his vehicle, and that was when someone pulled out a gun. Thinking quickly, Ashley dove onto his girlfriend, completely covering her body and acting as a human shield. He took multiple bullets to his torso, but his girlfriend was completely unharmed. This quick act of courage cost Ashley his life, but saved the girl he loved. The bandits then fled into the night, only to be arrested shortly after by police and charged with murder. The shooters were both only 16 years old, and now they're being charged with attempted murder, and homicide. 2. Deadly alligator attack. In August of 2018, 45-year-old Cassandra Klein was vacationing at her property on Hilton Head Island, South Carolina. It was part of her daily routine to walk her dog near a golf course lagoon just across the street from her property. The golf course is part of a private resort on the South Carolina coast, and the residents who live nearby are mostly affluent retirees. Cassandra's dog was a border collie, and that fuzzy canine really was part of her family. The pair were inseparable, practically best friends, according to Cassandra's neighbor, Thomas DeMaio, who heard the scream just before Cassandra's death. She walked that dog at least 3 times a day, and when she did, she always carried a bag of dog treats and made sure to spoil the animal. And so Cassandra's reaction was understandable when an 8-foot, 2.4-meter alligator leaped out of the lagoon and attacked her dog. Instead of screaming and running away, Cassandra tried to fight the alligator herself to save her pup, rather than being intimidated. The alligator gave up on the dog and snatched the woman instead. The alligator then dragged Cassandra down into the murky depths and killed her. In the end, Cassandra and the alligator both lost their lives, but the dog was totally unharmed thanks to its owner's selfless actions. 1. Unprovoked Brooklyn slashing. In December of 2021, during the week of Christmas, a woman in Brooklyn was slashed by a random stranger. The mother was walking down a street in Brooklyn with her children, presumably happy since it was the Christmas season, when a man stepped in front of them completely unprovoked. He had a knife in one hand, a mean and terrifying look on his face, and it was clear the deranged stranger was looking for trouble. The mother was Arely Ramirez, 41 years old at the time of the incident. She had just reached the corner of 45th Street and 8th Avenue in Sunset Park when the maniac launched himself at her and her young son with a knife. Arely acted purely on instinct, stepping between the attacker and her young child, consequently taking a knife straight to the gut. Luckily, the crazed man ran away immediately after the first stab. He appeared to have been on some pretty hardcore drugs, and stabbing someone must have sobered him up a bit. He took off running and, as far as we know, was never apprehended by the police. Luckily for Arely, he wasn't very good at stabbing. The knife cut through her clothing but didn't penetrate her skin, leaving nothing but a small puncture like the tip of a needle and a fat bruise. If you got caught in a dangerous situation, would you rather a loved one put their life at risk to protect you, or deal with it on your own? Let us know in the comments, and thanks for watching. Be sure to hit subscribe if you haven't yet, and I'll see you again for another unbelievable video.